Hello, Pepper. What a surprise. The Brickster mentioned that you might be here. Looking for something? Were you looking for this? If you've answered yes, what a pity. You've got to go through me to get it. Not literally go through me. You know what I mean.
Rescue the dinosaurs by winching them to safety.
This is another mission I'm not really a big fan of, but in this case it's not difficult, it's just really time consuming. We have to go around here very slowly in this hot air balloon, taking all of the dinosaurs to the entrance of the area. At least as far as I remember, there's no other place to take them, unfortunately, so you have to go back here every time. This definitely gets old after a while, so in general, I find this just really tedious and definitely more time consuming than I'd like. We also have to deal with Mr. Hate over there, if I'm not mistaken, that should be what his name is, who is on a giant dinosaur shooting fire at us. We're deliberately going to go after the ones farther away just to get them out of the way faster. It's also worth mentioning that in general, I kind of feel like this area has really odd dialogue compared to a lot of the other parts of the game. I feel like in general, the writing in this particular section is a lot campier, if that's the word I'm looking for. I'm not sure if that's really the word I'm looking for, but for example, a lot of characters saying things and then kind of acknowledging that they've like made a quip, or like there's a lot of wordplay in some of the dialogue, and it definitely feels a lot more like, I don't know if self-referential is the word, I don't think it is, but something does feel off to me about the writing in this area. Though to be fair, a lot of the writing in general feels a little bit off in a lot of this game, especially compared to the first game, where I almost feel like this game is too serious at times compared to Lego Island 1, which had a lot more whimsy to it. This game does feel a lot more, again, story-driven for one thing, but also a lot more serious as a result. I do remember these dinosaurs were mostly given minifigures. I actually don't remember what exact line they were part of, if it was actually connected to Johnny Thunder and like the Jungle Line, or if it actually had more to do with something else. I do know there were sets for Jurassic Park, but I'm pretty sure these dinos were from something else, but I actually can't place what it was. I also think this hot air balloon was also a set, but I don't remember having this one. I didn't have all of the sets from these different lines, to be fair. I still wish a lot of these LEGO sets would have like modern versions. They have brought back some in recent years. Like they brought back a really classic castle and a really classic spaceship, for example. Part of me wonders if they would ever try the Johnny Thunder line again, or if kind of like Indiana Jones, there's some unfortunate implications of the theming of the series to the point where LEGO would shy away from that. I say as also LEGO did just do a new line on Indy earlier this year, as they did some commemorative sets for mostly Raiders, but also a couple for Last Crusade, or actually just one for Last Crusade if I'm not mistaken. And speaking of which, I'm pretty sure a couple sets were actually cancelled for reasons of cultural insensitivity, to put it politely. I think we're just about halfway through this mission. Again, this one just takes forever, and that's why I'm not really a fan of it. If there was a second drop point for the dinosaurs closer to the far side, I definitely like it a little bit more. But as is, having to like manually fly over every time definitely gets old after a while. Truth be told, I don't know what I'm missing, actually. Unless it's the tiny baby dinosaurs over here, and they all count for the total. I see 5 there, so this might be all of them, and there could be one more. Again, it just depends on if these all count as individual, which I hope they are. They are, so that means we have 1 left to go, but again, I have genuinely no idea where this final one is, so we'll just have to kind of fly around and hope for the best. I don't remember how score is calculated in this mission as well, which might also be a problem. I think as a kid, I actually struggled a lot with this one because I played it badly. I'm pretty sure I didn't understand that you had to actually drop the dinosaurs off at the drop point, so I think I'd actually drop them anywhere, and thus, in some cases, I'd actually get a really bad score. I swear I've flown around this entire section, and I don't see where this is. We aren't ready to deal with the villain yet, because there is actually a separate function of the balloon once we get to that point. So that means we still genuinely have one more dino to actually go. And again, I am struggling to actually see where it is. Maybe it's over here? I thought I got this one though. I also, oh, there it is. It's just the camera was kind of obscuring it, because of course it was. Once we drop this one off, we'll be able to drop sandbags from the hot air balloon, and we'll be able to take out Mr. Hate, and also free the final dinosaur. So once again, we have to dodge all of his fireballs, and carefully make our way over to finish him off. I think 3 should be enough to win this fight.
I'll get you, Peppa, next time. Don't hit me. You won. Take the page. Just leave me alone.
Peppa, I cannot thank you enough, so I'm not even going to try. Oh, yes, I will. Thanks, Peppa. You're a good friend.
Thank you, Peppa. You are a real hero.
Yes, very true. I've taken the liberty of preparing your transport home. I hope you like flying.
Thanks a lot. I want to say I'll miss you, but I wasn't trying to hit you. See you later, Brickulators.
Again, I feel like a lot of the dialogue in this specific area feels a lot cheesier than in the rest of the game. Also, I feel like, I wonder if the Oasis page is part of the fishing minigame, because they say there's 3 pages here, and we only ever get 2 in this version. Also, speaking of cultural insensitivity, but let's move on and hop on board the helicopter. So the exit back to Lego Island should be somewhere over by the desert part of the region. You have a lot of ruins here that also don't serve any purpose in the story, which I find really interesting. Alright, there should be a landing spot over here.
No! You Brickster! You trickster! You Brickster!
Whoa, what? How? I mean, what the?
You said it, Peppa. Or not.
I think something is coming.
Hello. Am I bad or what?
Help! Oh dear! Mama!
Papa!
Yes, Mama and Papa, but more importantly, me. Mama and Papa are now my own personal chefs. I can have pizza on Ogle Island anytime I want to. Mine, all mine!
You still owe me for the last pizza.
Hang in there, Mama and Papa. We'll save you. Whoa! Okay, the plan now is for you to go to the radio station and get a radio. I think we can beat them with music. Beat them, baby. 8 to the bar.
I'm a man with a plan. Pepper, the Pied Piper of pizza.
The only downside of this plan is the radio shop isn't here, so we'll have to look for some of the pages first. One is right over here, thankfully. I think I saw another while we were actually flying into this area, but to be honest, I actually don't know where it was now, so we'll have to keep looking for that. We actually can't deal with any of the Brickster-Bots because they've been powered up and will avoid our attacks, so we specifically need to have a boombox to stop them. But again, first we actually need to find a few of the pages first. There's another one over here. The one I need is going to be the last one I find, isn't it? I just feel like that's going to be what happens, knowing my luck. Again, I don't quite remember where all of these are, so we'll just have to kind of look around and see what we can find. A lot of these tend to kind of run together, but thankfully, at the very least, this is a very small area, so even if you aren't sure where they are, it doesn't take a lot of time to cover all of the ground in this version of Lego Island. It does feel bigger than the first games, but at the same time it also doesn't feel very, like, fleshed out, if that makes sense. Like, a lot of it's just dedicated to, like, roads, compared to the older game, where I almost feel like more space was spent on, like, buildings and things. Again, these games definitely feel like they're going for very different atmospheres, which makes them stand apart, oddly enough, despite being sequels. Despite this being a numbered sequel at that, it does have a very distinct identity to it from Lego Island, which I think is part of the reason why it ends up being kind of disappointing to a lot of people, because it definitely ends up feeling a lot different in terms of the overall vibe, and yeah, that ends up making it feel kind of like an odd sequel. Maybe not a fitting sequel would be the better way to put it. I am struggling to figure out where these final pages are. Could have sworn one was over there on that little peninsula, but I also could be confusing it for an earlier set piece. The unfortunate part with the helicopter is I guess we could get into the helicopter to speed this up, but the one downside of that is you can't land anywhere, so you'd have to like find a landing spot and then try to remember where you actually saw the page, which would be kind of annoying, so I feel like we'll just continue to search on foot. My gut instinct is that they're probably somewhere around the other side, like by the police station, but I could have sworn I looked there already and didn't see anything. But again, sometimes the draw distance doesn't really help here, so that could be my problem. We'll double check the rescue headquarters here. I don't see anything, so we'll move on. Actually, I think I see one by these trees. Now that I think about it, I wonder if it's actually programmed to actually give you these in a set order. Like, if you're supposed to get the radio one last, and then deal with the Brickster-Bots. That would make sense in a lot of ways. But yeah, it is a little bit inconvenient though, because we actually can't deal with any of the other objectives here until we find this last page, wherever the heck it is. Again, I'm not having the best luck of finding this one for some reason. In my practice run, I also had trouble finding the final page, but I actually remembered where that one was because of how much of an ordeal it was. Also, while we're looking around, I did want to mention if you are using a if you're playing on original hardware with an old style controller, you would be able to still move the camera using the shoulder buttons. But if you have a DualShock, you can actually use the right analog stick, because again, this was a much later PS1 game. This was about 2001 actually, so towards the end of that system's lifespan. Actually, I think the PS2 would have been out by the time this game released. I genuinely don't know where this final page is. It's gotta be somewhere, and again, the island's not that big, so I don't know why I'm having so much trouble, and again, I'm pretty sure I saw it in the flyover when we arrived here, so that's also why I'm very confused as to why I am just having the hardest time locating this one. Unless it was the one we got over by the water here. In general, I almost feel like some of the pages end up kind of being close to where the actual buildings are, but it definitely isn't the case at all times. Let's get a better look here. Again, with the draw distance doesn't really help, but sometimes the pages actually load in more generously than everything else. We'll double check on the back side of this area, even though I think it's not going to help us any. Worst case scenario, we will hop back into the helicopter and look around there, but again, I'd really prefer not doing that because it would take a lot of time, not that we're not also taking a bunch of time here. My other theory is there's yet another one by the Space Center, which would be kind of odd given that there was one earlier, but that's like one of the last places we haven't looked, and it doesn't seem to be here either, so I am definitely at a bit of a loss here. There it is. I could have sworn I looked over there, but maybe not. Maybe it was also earlier on, again, since this objective type comes up multiple times. But with that, we want to head over to the shop and pick up a radio to deal with the remaining Brickster-Bots in the area.
My main man Pepper, what's up?
We need a radio, DJ. Long story, but we need a radio.
That's cool, no problem.
Time to make those Brickster-Bots dance.
To tell the truth, this also isn't one of the most exciting parts of the game, given that compared to throwing pizzas at them, which is actually only used like a few times throughout this game, this is kind of just filler, really. I'm not going to worry about the gray Brickster-Bots because this takes so long, and I'm not really that concerned about score if I'm being honest. I'm only going to focus on the main 4 just for the sake of time. But again, if you want a higher score, I think you should go after those, and I'm pretty sure for the 100% it does count towards that. Because there are, I'm pretty sure, 100% speedruns in some cases. But again, that might apply more towards the PC version specifically, and not so much the PS1 version, which again, I almost feel like is definitely not the best way, but it's just a little bit easier given how hard it is to get older Windows titles to work on current hardware. There's one, and luckily the last 3 are all kind of grouped together by the jail area. In my practice run, the final one took way longer than I'd care to admit to find, because, truth be told, I ended up completely forgetting about the one behind the jail. But again, this just takes a while for the animation to play out, but the final one is right by here, so we'll once again wait for it to tire itself out, and then we'll take it out. We're actually getting very close to the end of the game. This is not a long game, though the first game was also pretty short, to be fair, if you're not concerned about getting every mission with every character. But we should be good to go in a few moments. And with that, we need to figure out what to do next. I, to be honest, don't quite remember. I know where we have to go eventually, but for the next step, I don't fully remember. Is the Infomaniac still over here? I don't see him. I know ultimately we have to go over to the Space Center, but I can't remember if we have to talk to the Infomaniac first, so let's head over there.
Hey Pepper, how are your adventures? You should go to the police station now.
Alright, that was the step I was forgetting. But again, it is nice that you are able to actually get hints like that. So with that taken care of, let's head over here and then see what happens next. But again, this is actually the final stretch of the game. It's really a pretty easy game to get through for the most part. But yeah, let's head over here and see what's next.
Excellent, grand, top notch. You've done a bang-up job. Out of this world. Which reminds me, Peppa, to the spaceport.
Spaceport. Way cool.
Another thing worth mentioning is I'm pretty sure a Lego Boombox would eventually exist, and I think it might have been for the Island Extreme game, which is the third Lego Island, which I actually really don't care for. I didn't grow up with that one, and I definitely have strong opinions on it, so I wouldn't exactly feel inclined to ever go through that game again, if I'm being totally honest. But again, it's nice that eventually Lego Island did get official sets, because as is, at this time, there wasn't anything like that. And it's kind of odd that they didn't capitalize on this until the third game. But we have to head over here next.
Reach maximum speed to prepare for spaceflight.
Unlike a theme park, you don't have to queue for the rides here.
For this minigame, we have to press square and circle as the lights light up on either side. This will gradually speed up the centrifuge. I think that's the term. I may be mispronouncing that, to be honest. I do like this minigame because you can see Pepper's expression in the background change as it starts to speed up more and more. If you miss an input, it'll flash red, indicating that you messed up, and it'll also, I think, slow down at that point. This isn't too difficult, oddly enough. I actually find this surprisingly easy. But again, I remember as a kid I struggled with this quite a bit, but I was also really bad at timing minigames, I'm pretty sure at the time. Yeah, now we're almost to full speed. We have about 10-ish seconds to maintain this. I'm definitely dropping a lot of inputs here, unfortunately, but luckily we should still be able to get a pretty decent score here.
Sorry, Peppa, but your face is still stuck in a high G grin. Looks like you'll be okay during takeoff.